Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. It is Wednesday, May 17th, 2017. We are in the midst of tech company announcement season, whether it's Amazon over the past month, it seems like, Microsoft last week, Apple next month, or of course today, which was the start of Google I/O 2017. This morning, they had the big keynote address, and that was at 10 a.m. Lasted for 2 hours. A lot of great information. I'm going to recap this and kind of gloss over some of it. If you want to see all the details, a lot of information, a lot of cool stuff from Google. I will sort of spoil it at this point, just so that if you're only interested in if there was any new hardware launched or announced, there was not. So we'll just get that over with at the beginning. Google, of course, has been around for a long time. Next year will be 20 years for them. They've moved, they talked about how they've moved from going from mobile first to AI first. And of course, Google's mission continues to be that they are, I'll just quote it, that they are organizing all of the world's information. And they certainly do that pretty well. Sometimes I don't like Gmail still, but anyways. Now they've moved to AI first, which means that they're going to put all of this deep learning, machine learning, neural networks, all of this other stuff right into all of the Google services and products, even the actual Google search engine itself. So they're slowly moving to do this. They started this rollout last year. They talked about the Google Assistant. It would be a way to interact with Google to get you answers to just about anything on just about any device that you could think of, that you would have in your hands or at home, anywhere. So Google Assistant everywhere, Google's AI technologies everywhere. They talked about a few other things, Android O, some VR stuff, YouTube, Google Photos. I'm not going to really touch on much of that. Again, it's all in the keynote. They talked at length. I'm just going to gloss over this in terms of some of the hardware, and they're making some of this hardware. They've been building their own servers and data centers for years. Now with the cloud, they're introducing their what are called tensor processing units, kind of these small arrays of computing power. You could call them servers, but ultimately they're part of Google's computing infrastructure. Now they're going to place that into their cloud architecture so that more people, developers and third parties, can get access to all of this computing power. They're calling it the cloud TPU, and each of these cloud TPU units can perform 180 trillion floating point operations per second. Not like entire, getting a web page or translating something, but individual tiny little operations. Still absolutely incredible. They didn't say if they're building robots and Terminators, but just assume that with the other thing that they're doing with neural networks, building neural networks and all of this AI stuff, probably, it's been nice knowing you, human civilization. They're building Skynet, and that's it. So that's what Google is. But they are going to be using it for good. They talked about cancer, detecting cancer early. So a lot of this deep learning stuff can be used to actually be a really good thing, and other than trying to figure out if your puppy is in your photo and what to do with it. But beyond all that, let's talk about something that's meaningful towards all this connected device stuff. So speaking of all of the deep learning and the AI stuff, it's helped them solve some issues. So originally, last year was actually when we found out at Google I/O, we found out about the rumored Amazon Echo killer device, the Google Home. And then it was officially launched and went into stores last fall. But you can see here, and of course, it only has 2 microphones on it, 2 tiny little dots, and I always thought that's really interesting because of course Amazon touted for years that they needed all these microphones to really understand your voice in noisy environments and across the room and so forth. Google also thought they were going to have 8 microphones in an array originally and reduced it to just 2. That's pretty fantastic, and my impressions, as many other people have found, that the Google Home overall is better at voice recognition and listening to your voice, and wherever you are, it seems, in your home. I can even be in my bedroom lying in bed and just barely talking and mention OK search engine, and it picks it up, and very impressive. Much better compared to Alexa. So they mentioned also the error rate for voice is down to 4.9% across all of the different devices that the Google Assistant runs on. That's really impressive. Really, really impressive. So again, for me, it seems to work a lot better. So that's one advantage in terms of all this AI stuff that they've basically invented. Google has all this deep knowledge about the world from all the knowledge that we give it and the search queries and everything. Google Assistant launched last year only on select devices. Recently, it's of course come to nearly all devices running Android that are running or capable of running Android Marshmallow, which is version 6.0, and that's representational right now of about at least 100 million users or devices among the 2 billion active monthly Android users or Android devices. A new feature, you can type to it, right? We've thought about typing, of course, to Google itself as a, for search queries all the time, but of course, it makes sense sometimes. You don't want to talk to your assistant. You want to actually type to it. Maybe you're watching a movie or you're doing something, it just doesn't make sense to start using your voice. So now you can type to it, and when it responds, it will simply respond silently on the screen. So that's fantastic. It'll just give you that same response it would have said, but it'll sort of text it. It'll type it back to you. Let's see, other big announcements. Google Assistant on iOS. You probably have heard about it on various text news sources. It launched, many people wanted this on iOS. Now it is here. You cannot remap Siri to, you can't remap the home button, you can't remap the automatic voice recognition within iOS itself, so it's pretty much a self-contained app. It can reach out and do certain things, it can send a message, but it's going to prompt you, it's basically going to send the message over to the Messages app, and you're still going to have to hit send manually. It can't run timers, it can't do certain things, but all the other built-in Google stuff within the app and within the Google Assistant it can do, including things like actions. Actions are those integrations with all of the other connected device and smart home stuff. So you can do stuff like this. I'm gonna not say the name and it's gonna freak out. So let's try that again. Turn off the desk lamp.
Okay, turning the desk lamp off.
And it's off. And now I can type back to it, and I'll show you the screen here in a second. Turn on the desk lamp. And I'll simply do that. And you can see that if it doesn't focus, then we'll put up a screenshot. And you notice that it didn't say anything out loud, it simply just responded via text. So a lot of things you can do, it's there. I'll have a link to it. You can find it in the App Store under Google Assistant. And you sign in and you instantly have the Google Assistant tied into your account and your wonderful world of Google that you've been used to on all other devices. And because again it's cloud-based, that's where everything is living. So all the integrations you may have already done and set up through Google Home, they're automatically available on the Google Assistant no matter which platform you're on. So that's really cool. It's going through for me, that interaction was going through the cloud, was going through SmartThings, was going back to my Mac, a whole bunch of different things. I'll have more details on how all this stuff works in my home coming up this summer. New languages, obviously English has been there, but languages rolling out this summer for the Google Assistant to better understand. French, German, Brazilian Portuguese, Japanese, by the end of the year, Italian, Spanish, and Korean. Let's see, I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to go over to here. No, I won't do that. So talking about languages and having conversations, contextual help is something that's key to all of these devices in terms of when you're talking to it and then when you decide to talk to it again and reference something that you asked it about 15 minutes ago or 2 minutes ago, you want it to be able to respond. They did a demo with this, not exactly with context, but they called it Transactions, which is this new platform where you can order food and probably Ubers and all kinds of things right with your voice through the Google Assistant, pay for it through Google Wallet with using your fingerprint to authenticate your transaction. It was really impressive. Panera is going to be one of their first or the first integration. The presenter on stage was able to do the demo. You can watch it in the keynote to go in and interactively just say, hey, I want to order this salad, steak instead of chicken. I'm ready to go. Here's the address from my Google addresses, and pay with it with the wallet, and you're done. Didn't say how long it was going to take to get there, but maybe they'll have that, additional information coming soon. So that's really, really impressive. Again, conversational in terms of asking, this is what I want to order, and then it continues to ask you questions and refine it down to ultimately getting to your payment information, and you're ready to go. They're building more context into recognizing whose voice it is, and that really, I believe, is really tied more to the Google Home than into individual Android devices. This came out a few weeks ago where basically you can train it. It won't be completely exclusive to you like, say, Siri is, that you can train Siri to ignore all other voices except yours when you train it, but with the Google Home and the Google Assistant, it'll know you versus, say, another family member, so that it'll give you your personal information instead of someone else's. So that's really cool as well. Proactive assistance for Gmail, smart replies. It'll just look at your emails, and if there are multiple choices, like for lunch or something that someone is saying, where do you want to go? It'll simply give you some things that you can tap on if it finds like an or an and or something like that. I like to respond to emails kind of personally. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but anyways. Let's jump to Google Home. Let's say, again, no new hardware, so nothing new in terms of a small one or a less expensive one. Many people hoped for that. It was rumored. Nothing happening, probably in the fall. Music, Spotify's free tier, SoundCloud, and Deezer are coming soon. Most of all these features, except for the Google Assistant on iOS, and I think one or two other minor things like the Google Actions being available in all the connected devices going into the Assistant today. Most everything else I'm going to speak of is coming over the next few months. That's including the music services. You can now stream audio to the Google Home speaker. It's a pretty good speaker, and I haven't yet tried it out for streaming like some of my own favorite music. So I'm going to try that out. So now you can do that via Bluetooth from your mobile device. Let's see. Visual responses. So they said sometimes if you want to get more information than what it could read to you, if you just want to read something, you need a screen. Where have we heard this about these speaker devices having screens? Oh yeah. So instead of having a device with a screen, they're going to connect you up with devices that already have a screen, like your smartphone or your TV that has a Chromecast plugged into it. So that's how that's going to work. Google Assistant is also coming to Android TV later this year. So I'm guessing that those two will also interlink if you're talking to your Google Home, and then it can display information on your Android TV. So it'll also be contextual in terms of voice recognition. If you're asking it for your day or your calendar, it won't pull up your family member's calendar or something else if you have all that stuff trained up correctly. And that's a setting that you can do in the Google Home. You can do that right now. That feature for voice recognition came out a few weeks ago. I already talked about that. So Google Home, the device itself launched in the US last year in the fall. It recently launched a few weeks ago in the UK. And over the summer, it's coming to Canada, Australia, France, Germany, and Japan. So 5 more countries. It'll make up a total of 7 by the end of the summer. I'm assuming it'll come to more countries as well. And obviously, they're going to have to support those languages too. Now, over 70 plus smart home providers, connected devices are now supported through Google Home. That can be extended a bit through IFTTT, which was one of the launch partners a number of months ago. That's really great because they're playing catch up with Amazon's ecosystem, and so it's really important that they come up to parity, especially, of course, by the next holiday shopping season, which we'll talk about that here in a second. And the last thing that I think everyone predicted, but of course Google did it in their own way, hands-free calling. Where have we heard about hands-free calling recently? Maybe on this very YouTube channel. But you couldn't make an actual phone call to a phone, as in a phone number. But with Google's version of it, you're going to be able to actually call out via an actual phone number. So again, with the context, if you have multiple family members and you have everything set up and each family member has a phone and they have a number associated with their part of your Google world, that's the caller ID that's going to go out. You can make free calls starting soon over the next few months, of course, as it rolls out. Free phone calls to any US or Canadian phone number from your Google Home. You cannot yet go Google Home to Google Home to app to app, all that other fun stuff that that the Echo announced last week. No messaging yet either, although I assume some of this could be rolled out. Google has a lot of experience with messaging and with telephony, with like Google Voice and Allo and whatever else they've got in terms of, please don't shut down Google Voice, please don't shut down Hangouts, please. So they've got all that experience. This is what they've launched. So hands-free calling coming over the next few months. And let's move on. But that honestly is for, in terms of being able to actually call a number, is great. And again, context, it'll understand not just if you have family members, call my Aunt Sue versus your Aunt Sue. It'll figure all that stuff out. So that's it. I tried to run through that really quickly. My commentary on all this, I think the AI stuff that they're doing is super, in one way it could be super scary, but in one way it's really fantastic. It does power all of these connected devices. There's really only so many ways that you could try to do all this processing on a device without using the cloud. Apple tries to do it a different way. But I think you really, to get the most benefit out of it, you've got to have the deep learning. You have to have all of this. They have to really make this work. This is still a $130 device, and people are really, even though this has not caught on yet, voice first devices. There was the voice report from Voice Labs that came out saying that there was only about 10 million total devices between the Echo and the Google Home that had been shipped in the past 2 years. That number is expected to climb by more than by 300% basically this year. But these devices, the Google Home is still $130, still expensive. So my assumption is that they will come out with a surprise announcement this fall, right before the holiday shopping season, make some sort of smaller, shorter, less expensive version of this to get it in front of more people and to get it into more homes. Again, they didn't give it a name. The Google Assistant is still just the Google Assistant. Let's see. The other thing is, with all these connected devices, these voice-first products, most people are not going to buy more than one of these things, right? They're going to settle on it. So once they get into a platform, especially if that platform, you know, works better than the other one, works with more devices, they're going to just jump in there. In fact, the Voice report said only 11% of the people surveyed would even think about buying a competing device if they already have one. I have both because, of course, I review this stuff and I live in this world, but most people would just say, I want the Google Home or I want the Echo, and that's all they're going to do. And devices shipped, all that. All the assistants. 2017, an amazing year it is going to be. It is May, we're almost at the halfway point. With Bixby having been launched and kind of botched by Samsung, hopefully they'll get that squared away. Bixby does not yet have all of the Viv technology that Samsung bought from the original people who built Siri last year. It's Bixby right now is based on the old S voice of Samsung. So if they can get their act together, they can be a player. I think Microsoft is going to be an interesting player with their Home Hub strategy, with Cortana, with the speakers for Cortana that were recently announced. If Apple finally jumps into the game and does their version of a smart speaker for Siri, too many S words, then we're really going to have a good race. Then we're going to truly have, if Samsung puts Bixby on a smart speaker, then we'll have 5 smart speaker platforms, and we'll have 5 AI platforms. And can we just have fewer of them? It's going to take a few years to work this out and to kind of whittle it down ultimately. Who's going to win the race? It's the one that's going to understand you the best. It's going to be the one that's going to provide you the best information, the best contextual information, and the one that sounds good. I know it sounds silly, but the Google Home, the Google Assistant, to me, if I was wanting this to be like my BFF, like to have like a virtual friend, she just sounds friendlier. The responses are better, more natural sounding. It sounds not very objective for a tech reviewer, but she just sounds friendlier. I know, it sounds silly. But anyways, We are stuck right now kind of in this point, they call it the chasm between the early adopter phase and mass rollout, again because of cost right now, because of this stuff is taking off. I mean, we saw the Saturday Night Live spoof of the Amazon Echo Silver. If you haven't seen that, I'll link to it. It's hilarious. So we're starting to see this kind of come out into the real world. More and more people will be adopting this technology, but it really will take a little bit more time with standards and the messiness and the cost of it. Amazon nailed it last year with the Echo Dot being priced at about $40 during Black Friday. So if Google can follow it, they're going to get these devices into more homes, and it really can be helpful. And these really are, I just wrote this, these voice devices really are the gateway drug, so to speak, to your smarter home, to your connected home, because you get one of these and you think, well, what else can it do other than like telling me the time and spitting out recipes and my favorite music? It can start controlling my environment, and that's where you can start buying your smart home devices and watching channels like this one and learning how all of it works. So with that being said, I think I'm going to end it right here. More coverage will be coming up on Apple's event in June. I'll have a dedicated, I'll have a whole show where I'm just going to talk about all the assistants and where we are and where I think things are going to be going over the next few months. The next video coming up after this one, which will be in the next couple days, will be very special, really cool. I think a lot of people have been hoping and asking for this particular video, and it's finally going to come out, and I'm just going to hold the surprise right there. So that is that for the wrap up of WWDC. Of Google I/O 2017. I can't even talk. It's been a long day. And other than that, Smarter Home Life is working on becoming independent, ad-free, and totally all about you and what you want to see, and not just about numbers and clicks. To make that happen, support from people, wonderful people like you, is helpful and needed. So head over to support SHL for smarterhomelife.com and become one of our insiders, and you get all access to behind the scenes stuff and sneak peeks on product reviews and all kinds of other goodies. And you can join the growing community over there and help support the show and make it completely independent and free of all the advertising and all that stuff. And other than that, there'll be show notes. There will be a website post as well accompanying this, and otherwise just check out the full keynote from Google. It's really impressive, all the stuff that they are doing. Nothing that was truly mind-blowing this time, but they're enhancing, they're iterating, they're adding to the entire system that they've said that they're going to have and roll out all the AI and the Google Assistant everywhere, and they are largely doing that. So that is it. I'm Jody Ganzik for Smarter Home Life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.